Hollywood is on strike. Now, while last week I kind of just skipped over the whole strike part and went straight into the robot part, today I want to focus a bit more on the non-robot parts. I'm not going to explain every detail of the writer's strike, the Screen Actors Clan, but let's talk about some of the big issues and misconceptions. What do the writers and the actors want? A small part of this is protection from the robots. I talked about this in the last video. They don't want their jobs taken by the robots. There's also some working conditions issues, but most importantly, this is all about money. Residual payments. Residuals are just like checks that a writer or actor can receive every time a movie or show they worked on is rebroadcast. For example, if you had a semi-significant role in the hit film Freddy Got Fingered, you might expect to get paid every time that movie re-airs on ABC Family. This is just how Hollywood worked. In the 2008 writer's strike, concerns of DVD residual shares were a central issue, and in this modern strike, it's residuals over streaming. Unlike traditional TV, streaming has no reruns, no syndication, no ads, for the most part. So this means no residuals. And this has led to an interesting phenomenon where the revenue generated by Hollywood as a whole has gone up over the past decade, but income for actors and writers has generally gone down. And this has had an interesting effect on the writing itself. Without residuals, without the drive to make shows more popular, writers have virtually no incentive to make shows that will do better, right? I mean, they might get rehired, but if you write something that gets 10 million views or 10,000 views, you're gonna get paid the exact same. I'm not saying all writers don't care because of this, but money is it's a good motivator. Now, the solution to this whole problem seems really simple on the surface. You just give the writers and actors residuals. Bob Iger is over here making $70,000 a day, so he can maybe he can give up a little bit of that and give it to them, right? I mean, this is the way things used to be done. Why are residuals such an issue now? Well, that's the thing. The strike is a lot more complicated than I think most people give it credit. Okay, let's say that the writers and actors win the strike. They actually end up getting the residuals for streaming that they want. Now, how would that work exactly? If I, the consumer, watch an episode of The Santa Clauses on Disney Plus, how much money should Tim Allen get for that? 1 penny? Half a penny? Now, there's a few ways you could calculate this, but the most obvious solution would have to be this. Take the total profits generated by a streaming service, how much money Disney is making off of Disney Plus, and then take the percentage of views or watch time for that specific show on that streaming service, find out what it is proportional to the total watch time of the streaming service as a whole, do your math, and there you go. Tim Allen should get X amount of dollars. But this doesn't actually work. If we do the math using this equation, Tim Allen would be paying Disney money. The writers of the show and everybody who would receive residuals would be paying Disney because the show doesn't make money. Disney Plus doesn't make money, and it's all bleeding cash. Disney does make money from merchandise and theme parks, and investors are more than happy to pump the house of mouse with the expectation that this streaming service will one day make all their dreams come true. But right now, Disney Plus is just not doing so well, and it probably never will. Obviously, Disney is making money. Bob Iger can afford to pay himself a lot of money. Again, those theme parks, the merchandise. So what if we just took some of that, all the money that Disney makes, and maybe throw that into the pile? To make it fair, consider the fact that the actors and writers working on the Ahsoka TV show are certainly contributing to the eventual sale of Ahsoka-related merchandise, which I'm sure will make Disney quite a bit of money in the long term. So you just take the number of people watching that show, and the profits generated by the merch, and I don't know, negotiate a deal. That seems simple enough, and it would be fair. But you run into a much bigger issue here, because how many people are actually watching Ahsoka? Now, Disney claims it's this number, but I can tell you that's not true. I can almost guarantee that any number given in regards to how many people are watching a streaming show isn't going to be entirely accurate. So back in the day when TV shows were on the networks over the airwaves, you had ratings and viewership calculated by services like Nielsen. And while they weren't 100% accurate, they were close enough. You can know within a certain degree of accuracy how many people were watching a show every week, and those numbers would determine how much a network could sell ad space for. It would also give the necessary information to provide residuals to actors and writers based on reruns or viewership or whatever. But in the streaming era, this doesn't really exist. There are a few third-party sources that can give rough estimates of how many people are watching a show, but it is rough. If writers and actors were going to receive residuals, Disney and Amazon and WB and NBC and BET would have to give out the actual data for how many people are watching these shows. And they really don't want to do that. Okay, so you might get some numbers here and there about Obi-Wan, how many people tuned in for a Boba Fett. But these figures are heavily inflated because they need to be. For example, when Amazon released The Rings of Power, it had bet a lot on it. It was the most expensive show ever made, most expensive piece of entertainment really ever made. But even still, nobody seemed to be watching it. Critically, it wasn't received all that well, and it was clear pretty quickly that this was something of a failure. And while that wouldn't hurt Amazon, the company, all that much in the long run, it would definitely hurt the executives at Amazon Prime's video division. And as everybody waited for the bad numbers to roll in, they didn't, because according to Amazon, everybody loved this show. And this is because of how the companies can manipulate viewership numbers. So say that you turned on this show just once, for a second, accidentally clicked on it when you're turning on Amazon Prime. According to Amazon, you watched the series, because technically you did at some point. For the briefest moments of time, you saw at least a few frames of the series. Maybe you did that on a TV, and a TV is in the living room. Maybe multiple people live in your house. We don't know. They don't know. Maybe it's just you, or maybe it's a party. Maybe 20 people are all gathered around to watch Rings of Power. Amazon doesn't know, so they can just guess. And as you can imagine, this gives streaming platforms a huge amount of leeway in the accuracy of statistics. In the case of, again, Rings of Power, the show would just autoplay when people idled on the Amazon Prime app or after watching any completely unrelated film, just so they could further boost these already boosted numbers. And this practice isn't uncommon in streaming. And this is where the problem with residuals comes in. If actors and writers would be receiving payments based on viewership, the studios would have to report accurate viewership. And if all the numbers that were previously given were inflated by some extreme degree, the new numbers will not look good to investors. And it would reveal that the entire streaming game is built on a house of cards, that most of Hollywood is a bubble ready to burst. Because the effects of this can extend well beyond just the streaming shows. Right now, Disney can claim that Ant-Man Quantumania was a success if they really wanted to, because, I mean, hey, maybe people watched it on streaming, and maybe this was the movie that made them keep their Disney Plus accounts. You can't prove it. You can't disprove it. It's all smoke and mirrors, and this strike threatens to uncover some of that very inconvenient information for all of these companies. This puts the executives in a awkward position. It's why somebody like Bob Iger, who seems to have meticulously crafted his public image over the past few years, is willing to say the stupidest things just so they don't have to pay these residuals. Because if they do, well, we'd find out just how bad things really are for Hollywood. These numbers really could be dreadful, so dreadful it's the end of the streaming wars. It might be better to just start licensing this content out to YouTube TV, put it back on ABC. Beyond this, I don't know. I don't really know what to say. These kind of things happen with every company, with every industry. It's just the fact that it's the entertainment industry. It makes us pay special attention. Worst case scenario, movies are gone. It's over. And I'm fine with that. I don't really watch anything except for the Bob Newhart show anymore anyway. I prefer this Bob to that Bob.